Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 47th ever episode of the Best Phone Plans Podcast. I'm Stetson.
And I'm Dennis.
And in this episode, we're talking about Nokia's new 5G phone coming to T-Mobile, the FAA C-band delays and what they mean for Verizon, AT&T, and most importantly, you. We've got some interesting information about Dish. We got some sprinkling of news again with T-Mobile. And I think, Dennis, you had some extra news items as well. We also have some questions from our friend Debo Pop and also Baruch coming from the Discord channel available to Patreon supporters. It's going to be a great show. I think we should kind of dive right in per usual. But before we do, Dennis, how you doing today?
I'm doing super good, and I kind of want to pick the topic to start, the one that's
Okay.
affected millions of people today. Can you take a guess what that is?
Well, because we literally just talked about it, I can guess, and it's going to be an outage. So, what was the outage? What happened? What do we need to know?
Yeah, so Comcast/Xfinity had a nationwide outage today that essentially affected all Comcast customers.
Wow.
It
And so,
it
is
it
this
oh
this is,
sorry.
you said all Comcast customers, so this is beyond just mobile. Like this is Xfinity internet and mobile, or is it just
Mobile
internet?
mobile was not affected because that's Verizon's network that they're using, but their
Okay.
core services, so internet, TV, and landline,
Wow.
all affected. And from the reports on Reddit, it wasn't just affecting like home users, like consumer services, but to try to get support, like the websites were acting wonky. The phones, like the support phone number when you call it, apparently was like down for some people depending on region.
Jeez.
It was major.
That's a bad day. And in situations like that, well, I guess if you're a recurring subscriber, you're not necessarily losing money. But my thinking was like, let's say if Amazon goes down, they're losing money per second the site is
Dude, no,
down.
you're underblown. You're reducing the
You,
catastrophe here.
it's
Listen,
really important. Yeah. So what was going
well,
on?
well, well. Listen, I mean, it's not just residential consumers that affected. This was business customers affected. This was enterprise
Oh,
customers affected. So, cell sites, for example, where Comcast was the backhaul provider in certain markets, were being affected. Now, if you look at Reddit, people just get up in arms. My question
oh, should I get my
for
pitchfork? Is that
Well, you can,
okay?
although I believe it's been resolved at this point. I'm not sure,
Okay.
but my question, or the thing that I want to add to it instead of just reporting it, is what do you think possibly would have caused such a widespread issue? I have like three hypotheses, but I wanted to let you go first before I start getting all nerdy.
Well, I mean, I'm not super into this, so my best guess is my understanding is there's software on the back end that's running these networks and systems. And from the Facebook outage, which was equally colossal to some degree, uh, there could have been some bad code that was deployed to a public build, and that could have caused one error that cascades and snowballs into a bunch of other errors, and that I think could have possibly caused this outage. Beyond that, I'm really no expert, Dennis. I think you have the knowledge and expertise here. So why don't you tell me what your three hypotheses are around this situation?
Yeah. So one hypothesis is that it goes along the premise that you were going around, where basically some type of issue happened that affected routing of traffic, and basically made it so that there was like DNS issues and stuff like that that were preventing you from getting connected to the internet. Similar to when T-Mobile had that outage on the East Coast, whenever they had the switching of like the fire providers, or the Facebook example that you
Yeah,
utilized.
yeah. Okay.
So that's one option. Option B is that because it sounded like there was the potential that there was other providers being affected outside of Comcast, which is hard to pinpoint if it was because of Comcast or just in general, is that some core part of the main fiber like infrastructure for the country got disrupted in some manner, whether that be due to like a cut, or whether that be because of cyber attacks, DDoS attacks, something like that, that affected core like internet infrastructure. That possibility is somewhat high. However, somewhat high in the sense because it was such a large scale that was affecting. It wasn't just like West Coast or East
Yeah,
Coast.
so it's really the scale of the outage that leads you to believe this could have been a possibility.
Possibility, although there's holes in that theory in the sense that like why was Verizon not affected, for example?
Yeah. I feel like if there was something that big infrastructure level, it would have been more than just
But then I can
Xfinity.
also easily explain why Verizon would not be affected in that Verizon is a tier 1 ISP. They have their own main backbone fiber, so it's possible that they didn't have to, going back to the routing of traffic, ever hop off on the main lines to get connected. And that because I'm just going to use an example real quick. Let's just say you were connecting to Google, right?
Yeah.
If the outage was if the outage was somewhere in like the middle of the country, right, and you're on the East Coast, but you're connecting to East Coast service anyway, so you were never going to pass that bad hop to begin with. Same thing with like if you're on the
West
Verizon's even
Coast.
on the West Coast, but you get my
Sure.
point.
Yeah. So it's
Um,
geographically where that break is can impact performance for
right.
different users. Do we know like what parts of the country? It sounded like it was nationwide when you were
It was
talking.
it was nationwide. It started off with California, like San
Hmm.
Francisco Bay Area, and then there was people reporting it in basically all over the country. Chicago, Illinois, like the
Yeah.
state.
Based on that, it would make sense to me that it wouldn't necessarily be like a clean break in the infrastructure.
Right. Which is why I said maybe some type of like cyber attack, possibly. Maybe
Sure.
really
Yeah.
advanced cyber attack. Third option is just something simply along the lines of basically just Comcast dropped the ball. like I don't
Is this
know,
like how is this different from option one, like deploying bad code or something like that?
because there's a difference between. So option one was just like, if I remember how I explained option one, I believe I said it was something along the lines of like having to do with the relays, like of peering agreements. Like it isn't just Comcast's fault. Like it might have.
Gotcha. And you're now option three is like, okay, this is just all on Comcast. Someone done goofed.
Yeah, somehow, some way. I honestly feel like options one or two are more likely because too many things were affected outside of outside of it just being like a Comcast problem specifically. Just too much was affected. And just looking at it as more things get posted on Reddit, like I'm looking at an article right now, like New Jersey, PA, Illinois, Indiana, these are some states. And if you look at like Down Detector, there's just this massive spike of like 50,000 people at like 10 a.m. Reporting like total blackouts. So
That is crazy. And I mean, honestly, as someone who spends all day on the internet doing stuff, I couldn't do work basically. Like that's my livelihood. Thankfully, I have cellular connections up the yin yang. We got 2 unlimited plans on Los Mobile. We got Magenta Max. Like we got all of the plans here, so I'd be okay. But yeah, as you mentioned, Dennis, the individuals and more importantly, in my opinion, the businesses who are affected by this, uh, yeah, they're losing money on transactions, point of sale systems that maybe aren't functioning due to lack of internet connection or really anything
as
that
I
depends
look
on
at
that.
Reddit, by the way, as an ever an evolving case, apparently. So remember I said there were certain other ISPs. Apparently Verizon was one of those ISPs affected.
Oh, so that
Um,
would almost indicate it'd be what would it be? Option, yeah, a stronger indication for option one and two.
yeah, two being like the most likely, like some core infrastructure. So maybe it was like, honestly, the
It's
biggest tier one,
nationwide though.
the biggest tier one provider in the country would be AT&T. Everybody at some point has to go over AT&T's backbone to connect to various large scale servers, like Netflix, for example. You're taking some type of hop along AT&T's main backbone. Maybe it was an AT&T issue.
Do you think they would have said anything?
I feel like it's too well. As we're talking about this, it's 7:22 on November 9th. I feel like it's too soon to say. I feel like what's going to happen is there's going to be some type of investigation. We'll hear a very fancy political version about like how things should be. Am I lagging, by the way?
Yeah, you're lagging a lot right now.
That is, I
It's
got your
you,
bad
right?
voodoo. Yeah,
Okay.
I think it is.
Jeez. Usually it's me. So I was like, is this on my end? Do I say anything? And Dennis over there is just starting, stopping. The good
Dude,
news
this
is
is the
the audio
first time
comes
it's
through.
happened on me.
Yeah.
Dude, I wonder if it really is like a Verizon issue and I just didn't know.
Dennis, what's your primary connection right now?
Verizon.
Oh my God.
I canceled Comcast, remember?
Yeah. That's done. Do you have like a couple more days left or is that
No. That was over on the 4th.
wow. It's gone. Well, I think
I'm
that's
running a
good
speed
because you
test.
say,
It's working
yeah,
okay. I don't know what's
everything's
going on.
working. I don't know
Maybe
what's
it's a
going on.
StreamYard problem.
I'm hardwired in. Everything seems to be smooth on my end.
Bro, I'm always hardwired, so I don't even know.
Let's keep going. The show must go on, Dennis, and we can't troubleshoot this live stream.
Fair
So
enough. Fair enough.
I think how should we round out the outage situation?
Basically, the long and short of it is that it's really rough. I really hope that first off that Comcast finds out what caused it, actually deploys money to make their network more robust and redundant, so if something like this doesn't happen again. But besides just paying blame on Comcast, I hope other ISPs learn from this incident because it wasn't that long ago that AT&T had a major outage because someone attacked one of their COs because they relied on that one CO just to route traffic, and it just goes to show how fragile our internet infrastructure is in this country. So hopefully we look at this as an opportunity to improve resiliency and add redundancy, and in doing so as well add capacity for the ever demanding needs of consumers and commercial use with 5G and so forth. And hopefully everybody gets their internet restored in a timely manner, like that everything starts working by tomorrow.
I agree 100%. All right, I think next topic that we should dive into, speaking of problems and network issues, we got some situations developing with the C-band deployment. And this is being reported by Light Reading, also Sasha Segan over at PC Mag. And what do you think is happening here, Dennis? Because we talked about this earlier on a previous episode. C-band's coming. It's this mid-band spectrum around the, what is it, like 3.8 gigahertz. I think it's like 3.8 is the peak, and then maybe it's like 3.6 to 3.8. Forgive me for not knowing those exact numbers off the top of my head. But yeah, and there were some issues with the airline. So what do you think is happening here?
If I understood things correctly, I mean, I know Sneed was kind of going poo-poo on it, which I tend to trust Sneed's info pretty well.
Yeah.
But
Well, let me actually back this up. So, basically, what's happening is Verizon and AT&T are delaying their C-band deployments. Why? Because the airline industry is putting up a big fuss. They're feeling concerned that the C-band frequencies may interfere with low altimeter devices on the airplanes, which measure how high the airplane is off of the ground, important for takeoff and landing. But Dennis, to back up your point and Sneed's point, C-band frequencies, not necessarily C-band, but the same frequencies are already active and deployed in Canada. So there's no reason they can't be active and deployed in the United States. And yeah, so I think a couple interesting things here. One, we know the official dates of C-band deployment now. It was going to be December 5th. It's been pushed back to January 5th. And number two, it seems like the airline industries need to get new altimeters in older legacy airplanes because
I was gonna say yes. So basically, from my understanding of what's been uncovering is that there are altimeters were apparently connecting over two different channels around the C-band frequency. One was I think 4.2 was it 4.2 gigahertz I believe, and the other one was 4.8.
I think that sounds correct.
And basically what needs to happen is basically they need to get off of 4.2 entirely for them to be happy-go-lucky and modernize themselves to 4.8 so that the whole C-band will be available without worries.
I mean, another interesting point is that the specific frequency block of C-band that the carriers are ready to deploy is the A block. And of course, spectrum is in blocks, A, B, C, D. The A block is the farthest block away from the airline frequency as possible. So it's 3.8 gigahertz, whereas the starting point for the airlines is 4.2. So that's a really solid 400 megahertz, basically buffer between those two frequencies that should hopefully allow for a clean operation. I mean, that's what's going on. I think quick recap, Verizon is hoping to cover 100 million people with C-band by the end of 2022, while AT&T is hoping to cover 70 to 75 million, and then increase those numbers for 2023. So yeah, it's going to be a pretty big play for Verizon and AT&T. And who do you think is happy to hear this news, Dennis?
T-Mobile.
T-Mobile, yeah. Maybe they'll bake themselves a little T-Mobile layer cake, throw a little 5G party. Drink some 5G gin or ginger beer, and
Are they still selling it?
I don't know. I think so, actually. I'm pretty sure you can go to the site. I think the gin is probably gone, but I'm pretty sure you can still get the ginger beer, which we
Dang.
decided in our Patreon exclusive taste testing was pretty bad.
Yeah, it was rough. But I will just say, I mean, people asked me people were asking me like if I was like shocked or anything by by this outcome, but honestly, this is pretty normal, right? Like there's usually delays when it comes to accessing this spectrum after an auction.
I think it's a little unfortunate on both ends where the airline industry knew this spectrum was going to be auctioned. Like everyone knew this auction was happening. To the airlines' credit, they did vocalize concerns. I think starting in 2018 is the earliest. But now here we are, and they are pushing things back. I think the downside is there isn't really a clear solution right now. Like basically, the options are Verizon and AT&T delay and keep delaying based on the airline's request. And the other option is the airline gets new altimeters, which fixes the situation and they're able to actually fly their airplane safely.
Or there's option C.
Yeah.
Just deploy the spectrum that's not even close as far as the guard bands go, and then just wait on the parts that are too close until the airlines.
I think we can throw in an option D. Like you can deploy, but just away from the airports.
Like, but even, and like, I'm just saying, like, because usually, deployments are in phases, right? Like, it's not like if Verizon got access to, I'm just using an example. Let's say Verizon somehow magically got access to a big old 300 megahertz chunk of spectrum, right? It's not like Verizon is going to be deploying the whole 300 megahertz gambit, like, right off the rip. It's Verizon, but they're not even that quick, right? So, like, just let them use what's available, because, like you said, it's the 3.8 that they have access to at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. It's the A block. I think it's 40 megahertz.
It's 3.8 to 3.9, 60 megahertz being allocated to Verizon, 40 to AT&T.
Perfect. There you go. And yeah, actually, Austin, great correction. C-band is currently in full effect and deployment in Europe and the rest of the world. So we here in the US should be able to figure it out. Although I will say in Canada, they are being a little bit more precautious. I think I misspoke earlier, but Canada, they are being precautious and they're deploying it, but they are setting up specific guardrails around airports. So like regions with airports, I think they're turning C-band off or not using it there.
It's also just worth throwing this out here, but the U.S. government isn't necessarily the most transparent government in the world. It's very possible that there's some type of classified information that we don't know about, maybe some military reasons or whatever, that are also maybe coming into the play. I'm not trying to be like a conspiracy theorist or anything like that. I'm just saying it wouldn't be the first time that something weird like that happened.
I feel like we would have heard something from the military or from another spokesperson. Right now, it does feel like to me the airlines are the predominant speakers.
Not if it was sensitive. I mean,
you don't think so?
Dude, if it was something sensitive, I'm just going to use an example. Let's just say the military was testing out some magical jet camera or something super sensitive. I don't know what the reason would be. If it was classified, they definitely wouldn't be sharing it, period. Like, you don't share it. In the same way, like, I don't know if you knew this or not, but like if you... So, I told you I lived in South Korea for a month?
Yeah.
Fun fact about South Korea. Lots of places on Google Maps don't exist. Even though that they're real, they just don't exist because South Korea doesn't want their enemies knowing that these places are existing. And I can't really get into too much detail what these places are, but I will just say, generally speaking, they are either military... It's military related in some shape or fashion, whether it be because of SAMs or whatever. They just don't exist on Google Maps.
That is crazy.
In the same vein, I wouldn't put it past the U.S. to have similar things when it comes to...
I guess I would have expected, like, hey, we're having C-band delays because the military or the defense has concerns with it. Like, a broader statement is what I would have expected, as opposed to right now, it definitely seems like the airlines, for whatever reason, are, like, the front names for this. And, Austin...
Just think about it like this, though. Like, it's odd that the U.S. has privatized airlines. Most countries don't do that. In the same vein, if the military was doing something, it would probably be in conjunction with the privatized airlines. So basically what I'm getting at is, like, I don't think the airlines are just doing this to be dicks. I'm sure there's probably some, like, multi-structured amount of reasons for why.
So you think it's more than just this altimeter thing?
Probably. I mean, if it was just the altimeter thing, then all they'd have to do is just do a software update to turn off the the connection.
I think it might actually be hardware related with some of the altimeters in the planes. Like what I think Roger was saying, Roger Etner from Recon Analytics, is that they basically need to put new altimeters in outdated airplanes. Like they need to just upgrade those.
Or just don't fly the old airplanes. Like,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, as Austin is saying, like there's such a huge frequency range with this spectrum block that's being deployed. It shouldn't be an issue. We talked about Qualcomm's newest technology that's actually putting an even more abrupt curve on the frequency cutoffs to have an even better guardrail in place. And Austin, again, coming in clutch. You could also just use millimeter wave only in airports and leave C-band out of it, which is kind of what we were saying with sort of region-specific coverage.
I'll also just say a month extra time isn't going to really do much. So
yeah.
Whatever.
The airlines, like they basically have a month to fix their problem. Or I think there was a great ending to the light reading article where, the Fierce Wireless article. I've been reading too many articles from so many great sources. Basically, Levin, who I believe is an analyst, I don't want to misspeak, but Levin was saying that unless the White House clearly steps in to resolve the matter, the outcome is determined by the willingness of two separate institutions to inflict or accept pain. Like, basically, they're butting heads. There is no clear compromise, so it's kind of...
what I'm basically getting at is that the issue doesn't make that much sense to me, as mentioned by the guard bands and everything else. So, part of me, not trying to be like, again, not saying there's some type of conspiracy.
You're just thinking... They're putting up such a big deal about this that there's got to be more of an underlying thing going on.
Yeah, like maybe or maybe it's something the airlines don't want to share for competitive, like, you know how like companies, you sign NDAs with them and stuff like that for competitive disclosures. Maybe the airlines had something they had working on it they don't want to disclose to the broader public that we don't know about that's going on behind closed doors in a courtroom, right? Like,
sure.
Stuff like that happens all the time between companies. Right?
I'd be open to it. I think my gut instinct right now from the reading I've done is the airlines have been struggling. They want to do well. They want to keep as many flights open as possible. And any potential hiccup in this for the holiday season, whether it is issues with their altimeters or something else, I think they just want to avoid. So that's my best guess. Either way, we're going to have to wait and see what happens with the airline in the C-band deployment. Until then, we're expecting the ABOC spectrum to start rolling out starting January 5th from both Verizon and AT&T.
Moving on from that, why don't we touch on what Debo Bop asked us, since it kind of has to do with relation to 5G.
That sounds great. Yeah, question from Debo Bop, Patreon supporter. You should talk about 5G technology you want carriers to focus on. Standalone 5G, voice over NR, millimeter wave applications. Debo Bop, thank you so much for the question. Very much appreciate it. Dennis, what are your thoughts here? Where do you want to begin with this?
Yeah, so I mean, let's talk about what we want to see happen, because a lot of times we focus on the capacity aspect, but we don't actually talk about the other aspects of what 5G really brings, right?
Sure.
We could have improved capacity over LTE. That's not the main thing that 5G does, right? With that being said, my focuses depend on the carrier a little bit.
Oh, that's interesting. So yeah, where do you want to start?
So for example, with T-Mobile, one thing that I want to see happen for them is for them to focus a lot on the standalone aspect of things and voice over NR.
Why those two things?
So the reason why I want them to focus on the standalone aspect of things is because I want to see carrier aggregation occur with N71 and N41. That is what we want to see for the super low latencies and the other things go along with it. But more so than that, the reason why I want to see voice over NR focused on is because out of all three of the carriers, and I don't think you're going to argue with me on this, T-Mobile has the worst call performance, just in general.
I can't really say anything. I don't really make that many phone calls.
All right, fair enough. Well, for most people, I think they'll agree with this statement, and I don't even think even the T-Mobile fanboys will argue with me that T-Mobile has pretty poor call quality. And a lot of the coverage that they've been deploying that's been propagating the best has been their N71. It doesn't have a lot of capacity, but it sure does get bars on phones. However, not everywhere has voice over NR support. We've seen it here and there, like we did the test call, I don't even know how long ago, but it's not on all the cell sites. So I would love to see that become a thing, because when we had, I think it was Asan actually, he was talking about some of the other enhancements that came from the NR standards, such as the, reduced compression on the audio codec itself, and other tidbits of things here and there that I really don't want to steal from Austin's mouth. Go watch that previous episode. He does a better job of explaining the details. But I want to see that happen because even though it's a basic piece of functionality, it is something that I use quite frequently, especially with my new job. And I would love for call quality to be improved on the T-Mobile network. And then as far as the carrier aggregation goes, I want that to happen because I want them to make most efficient use of the spectrum that they have. I want to see the low latencies. I want to see the good, reliable speeds and everything else that 5G standalone will bring, such as the network splicing aspect of things and more control of QS for T-Mobile.
Yeah. Actually, Dennis, kind of lucky enough, we have Austin in the chat joining us. He's respectfully saying he doesn't agree that T-Mobile is the worst call quality. For him, it's been Verizon. And right now, T-Mobile is using wideband AMR for their audio and call quality. So
specifically referring to the handoffs, T-Mobile has a lot of drop calls.
Like tower to tower if you're driving or commuting? Sure.
Right. And I'm saying that N71, in my experience, has had better propagation characteristics overall.
Yeah. I think my big thing is actually the standalone 5G. I think T-Mobile is likely in the lead with that. I'd really like to see them take that in stride, deploy their standalone 5G network core, make it more widely available. And as you said, that will help because you can carrier aggregate 5G. I think if T-Mobile is marketing their 5G network so much, I think that'd be really nice to have the standalone there. And
yeah, now for AT&T, the thing I want to see AT&T do is just get 5G deployed.
Yeah.
Like their 5G is relatively non-existent.
Dude, it's like they basically don't even have it, right? Like they have low band 5G with DSS, but as we've talked about before, it's not a huge improvement over their LTE, which they've branded 5GE. I mean, their LTE is just so fast and has so much capacity. You get outstanding speeds in your apartment. I think really what we're just waiting on for them is C-band. Like that will be the AT&T 5G network. Because their 5G plus is deployed in so minimally. It's really only like the stadiums, the airports, and other larger crowded venues. Whereas Verizon is kind of taking this stride with millimeter wave. Like it's really like starting to blanket Denver, which is surprising to say. But when you look at the map, like the city blocks are getting more and more covered. So yeah, I'm 100% with you. AT&T, we just need 5G. Period.
Yeah, I mean, I will just put a finer point on it. As far as the low band goes, I would love to see them start repurposing some of the spectrum that they've been utilizing for the LTE network for 5G, because they have the spectrum already that they acquire from FirstNet for their low band, and they use in some markets band 12 as well as a few other. Like they have a pretty good portfolio of low band frequency that they could probably allocate more than 5 megahertz to 5G, right? They could probably do 10 by 10 at least. And then obviously complement that with the 40 megahertz of C-band once that happens. But even more so than that, millimeter wave also like non-existent for AT&T, relatively speaking. Yeah. And in the places that they are deploying it, it's definitely not performing at the level that Verizon has been able to achieve, which I think is very unfortunate. Since there are, despite AT&T's wide breadth of capacity as an average, there are definitely places where AT&T could highly benefit from having some millimeter wave sites deployed, such as the stadiums example that you mentioned, and also from the aspect of a broadband solution. You know, AT&T is putting a big focus on their fiber deployments, but there's going to be markets like mine where it just doesn't make sense to have fiber to be deployed, or it's just not going to happen. So it'd be cool if AT&T would actually say deploy millimeter wave in my market and start selling a wireless home-based product like Verizon and T-Mobile are doing.
That would be awesome. And I mean, right now, I think the secret AT&T fixed wireless solution is actually Los Mobile. That's the only fixed wireless solution I've found. And, you know, Carlos and Los Mobile, they're able to offer the unlimited hotspot plan for $80 a month, which I think is awesome.
And then as far as Verizon goes, for Verizon, I don't really have complaints on how they're taking care of things right now for the position that they're in.
I think they're doing great. Like millimeter wave is almost too deployed.
like they just need to keep doing what they're doing. Although I will say, like I said for T-Mobile, I do want to see Verizon actually develop their standalone 5G. I
Yeah,
think that's going to
standalone,
be
I think that's probably my number one thing. I feel like we're in this phase where we have 5G, but I think some of the benefits of 5G, specifically the lower latency and the carrier aggregation, require that standalone network core. So I think we're waiting on that to kind of get this second flavor and sampling of 5G and what it can bring.
well, it's not even just that; it's the network splicing aspect of
Oh,
it.
yeah. That's great. We had
Um,
Roger on talking about that.
and then there's the part when we start thinking about the applications of what 5G is supposedly going to be able to do, right? You kind of need a standalone core to start implementing all those fancy features, especially if especially within the case of Verizon, they want to service all these commercial customers and do all the types of things that commercial businesses have as needs. Standalone has to become a thing, right? Like you can't really
100%.
do that over
Yeah.
the LTE core.
Yeah. Yeah. What is that called? It's not necessarily network splicing, but it's like you have
No,
the dedicated channels. I
it's
forget the
literally called
name.
network slicing. No, that was
Really?
the yeah
Network slicing? All right. Perfect. So that Debo Bob hopefully answers your question.
or
Although I
spectrum
will
slicing,
say,
I think.
yeah, oh yeah, that's what it is. Spectrum slicing, I think. Um, so hopefully that helps answer your question. I think ultimately for me, like Dennis, you talked about tons of great points, which I agree with. I think for me, the fixed wireless aspect of 5G is probably my number one use case. Like, I would love to see Verizon focus on that. I'd love to see what kind of improvements they can bring with their fixed wireless offering when they deploy their C-band spectrum. Same thing goes with AT&T. Like, I want AT&T directly to offer a great fixed wireless solution. Right now, they don't. It really is kind of through Los Mobile at this point. And I'd love to see actually, yeah, that's pretty much it. So I think fixed wireless is the use case I'm most excited about. And speaking of which, this is actually kind of an interesting segue. So Austin is asking, how about the rumors of the new T-Mobile 5G gateway? As you'll know, I sent mine back after a hardware failure and inconsistent speeds, no band locking and poor reception due to no external antenna support. This is interesting for two factors. One, my T-Mobile home internet router, the Nokia 5G gateway, is arriving today. Like right after this, it's getting here. The UPS guy is showing up. And two, we actually did do a full episode on that. Dennis and I, we talked about it. So I think, yes, I'm excited. I think at this point, they need it. Dennis, what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think that was one of the Achilles heels, so to speak, for the T-Mobile home internet product. That gateway was literally a piece of trash.
It looks
Can,
like a
right?
trash can. It is a trash can. I'm keeping my mind open, but yeah, from Austin, what you've said and what we've heard many other people say, it sounds like it's in desperate need of improvement. So hopefully the new one brings that. And Dennis, should we talk about what our second Patreon question from? Who's it
Yes,
from?
from Volks.
Volks. Yeah. So Volks is asking about possibly, and this kind of segues
Or
nicely.
Varuk or whatever. Sorry.
Possible topic: connected cars and devices with embedded cellular modems. And he gives some examples of how cars are utilizing this for features and functionality. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, so I think his question goes into the application aspect of things. So I'll read it off specifically.
Yeah, so it sounds like
Um,
we had what we want the carriers to focus on from a development standpoint, and here are some of the use cases that we can utilize existing networks for.
or more, this is what networks are being used for now with older technologies type of thing.
Okay.
That's what I got from it. But yeah, so on the topic of car manufacturers, right? Because he talks about OnStar, Carolink, BMW Connected Drive, etc. I think that's going to be one of the big use cases for 5G is in the form of an application. Specifically, the idea of kind of like having this like internet on the go. Like, I'm just going to use an example. Say it's the good times, no more COVID, right? And you're able to travel, right? You're in the car, you got your kids in the back seat, they're playing on the iPad. Being able to have them all connected to like the car's like awesome Wi-Fi, getting like some really great capacity, so they're just being quiet in the back. All the while you got your Spotify going and so forth. Be kind of like this little ideal setup, right? Or maybe you're taking a cue from the awesome people at Mobile RV
Oh, mobile RV mobile internet resource
resources.
center.
Yeah. Maybe you're taking a cue from that style of travel, and you want to deck out your RV so it's almost like a mini home, and you're kind of just doing your thing. Maybe you even got a game console in there, and you want to be able to game on some 5G, right? Like these are aspects that I could see cool, and maybe there could be some kind of custom plan where it's like actually unlimited data, similar to what Lotus Mobile was able to do with the AT&T access. Like that would be an aspect of things. But in the same vein, not everything on a car needs to be fancy and support the high traffic. Maybe it needs to be something that requires very little traffic, like reporting your location if you get into an accident to call 911 or something, right?
I think like just imagine how much granular our traffic reports could be if we had all cars connected to the cellular network and being able to like ping their location.
Well, it would definitely solve a lot of stolen vehicle
Yes.
instances.
That's actually a really interesting point. There's an issue going on in the camera world right now where cameras like the kind I use to shoot my videos are high value items, easy to steal, high resale value. Similar thing with cars, where like once it's stolen, you're kind of SOL, you're not have your vehicle. And I think as manufacturers are able to improve their identity theft functionality, add in location tracking to deter thefts, I think it could really help both car owners, lifetime value of the vehicles, and things like that.
And then he gets into other topics like home security, like ADT, Simply Safe, and things like this that have like a cellular backup aspect that rely on the old 3G network that will be sunsetted here soon.
Yeah.
I think that a 5G update would be unlikely to happen in the short term, but when it does, very useful because for security systems that use cell phone for backup, it's usually just for basic functionality like calls. Like it's not like your cameras are going to keep working if it just ends up relying on the cell phone network. It's highly unlikely. I will just say that. But with what 5G promises and the capacity that it should have, it should enable a world where now you really do have like a redundant connection to the point where you might not even need to rely on a home internet provider to have home security. The likelihood of that happening very low because I'm sure those security companies are paying a butt ton more money when they use cellular traffic over you using your home internet.
Right. Yeah, that is kind of the core issue of that.
But it does enhance the reliability of the security system itself and technically has the potential to allow those companies to expand their offerings into the more rural parts of America. Not that they might not necessarily be the targeted demographic, but hey, it allows them to expand their business in a way that wouldn't have otherwise been possible, right?
And I think it's great too. Like if there is a power outage, your cameras, at least I got actually the new Nest camera, the Nest doorbell that has batteries. And so it'll actually, even if the power goes out, it'll have that battery power and it will still be able to function to some capacity, but it won't have the internet access because the Wi-Fi will go down. And with a cellular backup, even if it's not streaming a live video feed, it can do the on-device processing of the video feed, use Google's AI algorithms to detect packages, people, shattered glass, and things like that. And then once that occurs, use the connection to forward that to your mobile device or other connected devices. So I think it's a really great value add in my opinion.
Now, I will just say one other application is definitely more business use case, but my company's new laptop that they provided me actually has a SIM card slot.
Oh, I am so jealous, Dennis. That is awesome.
And I think that the aspect of literally being able to connect a variety of devices that would have not otherwise normally been connected is something that 5G is going to enable to happen, specifically laptops and even maybe the possibility of desktop computers. I could easily see someone making like a little USB to micro SD card add-on so you could plug in your desktop as like a backup redundant connection.
I'm not convinced on desktops. I feel like that's the exact use case for a dedicated hotspot device. But laptops, I'm all for. I hear you on that.
I mean, look, maybe you just need that one machine backed up and you don't want to buy a fancy Ubiquiti Dream Machine Pro to get the job done and go through a third party. Maybe you just want to buy it straight from like a carrier, right? Plus, hotspot devices are also inherently expensive, and by the nature of hotspot devices too, they can be a little bit finicky, as we've seen with like the freebie one that T-Mobile was sending out from Alcatel. Remember that?
Oh yeah. Well, if you're getting a free hotspot device from Alcatel, I'm expecting some troubleshooting there. Okay. If you're getting a nice, more premium Netgear Nighthawk M1 or their new 5G M5, I think you'll have more of a smooth sailing experience. So yeah,
I don't know. I just it's hard to say what 5G is gonna do. Like we definitely got like the what if scenarios, but if history's taught me anything, we can give a rough idea of what we think the future will be, but what will really happen is that there'll just be things that come up that no one would have predicted, like or would have predicted would have taken off in such a way. And the best case example of this that I can think of is something simple like Uber, right?
yeah,
Like Uber it didn't exist in the 3G area. It came about because of LTE and what that meant for like people on mobile phones. And it seems super simple and premise, right? Like just it's basically like a taxi service, but instead of having like professional taxi drivers, you do this and it GPS locates. Like it's a super simple idea and premise, but if you think about it, it totally revolutionized the world of commuting and basically killed off taxis for the most part, right?
yeah, yeah.
And in that same way too, like things like Google Maps, right? It's not like GPS didn't exist before Google Maps. I don't know if you remember like Garmin and like those big chunky things, but like
We had one, yeah.
but just being able to basically have it as an app on your phone basically killed off the point of having a Garmin. And in that same vein, it might just be something really simple like taking this external service that needs to exist right now, and now 5G enables it to be on this device. It might be something like killing off the Nintendo Switch, right? Why have a Nintendo Switch when you can just game on your fancy tablet? Game on
What
your
I'm
fancy
bullish
phone.
on a similar thread. So we have right now cloud gaming, Google Stadia, Xbox Game Pass, where you can basically you're streaming the video feed of the game to your device and using your cellular or wireless connection to control your character in the game. That often does introduce latency and possibly lag, which is I know something that a lot of game developers are working on. But I have my gigabit connection, and honestly, it works great. I don't really have any problems with Stadia. The thing I'm more excited for, and I'm optimistic that it might actually take off in this 5G era where 5G is promising lower latency, is something more along the lines of remote desktop, where instead of me, Dennis, I've got a couple-year-old iMac. Instead of needing to be like you and upgrade to the fancy pants M1 Max MacBook Pro, which I'm low-key super jealous about, I could just remote desktop into a M1 Max device in an Apple server, stream that to my display, which I already have, and get work done that way. So I think that is something I would love to see. And then this kind of fixes the problem of, all right, every 4 years I'm spending $2,500 to $4,000 on a laptop. You can suddenly pay a monthly subscription, $50 a month. You're always up to date, and $600 a year isn't that bad when you consider the purchase price and the lifetime value of laptops. So
I'm just
I don't
gonna
know.
say something that you're not gonna like me to say, but localized hardware will never be beaten by hardware as a service that you're kind of talking about. Just
Interesting.
because think about it real quick, Stetson.
Yeah.
You have a fiber connection right now. I have a fiber connection right now. You still experience some amount of lag and latency that you wouldn't otherwise experience on a localized device, even with a fiber connection. 5G isn't going to fix that, unless Google or whoever that desktop remote service is, whoever's offering that remote type of service that you're talking about, puts their equipment like directly in the head end of basically every major ISP and literally makes it so that you're not going over the wider web and staying on the internal network.
Gotcha.
So basically,
Gotcha.
i.e., your latency would have to be like sub. I'm not talking just like speed test, like 5 milliseconds. Like your actual latency to that game server or whatever you're using needs to be like less than 10 milliseconds for it to be close enough of an experience.
Interesting. So maybe I'm mistaken. I don't know. I like the idea.
I like the idea. I'm just saying reality versus theory. Like the
Yeah.
real world isn't going to let it play nicely just because we've seen peering agreements make a huge difference. But this topic is way too nerdy. I know that for a fact. Let's move along to something that I know a lot of people want to hear about since there's never enough news about it. And that's the Dish stuff that you found out about. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what's going on with Dish?
Oh yeah, this is actually really interesting. So we had the Andromeda auction going on. We reported on that. This was sort of this. I think it's also considered mid-band frequency, mid-band spectrum. It's the 3.45 gigahertz auction 110. That's the official name. But shout out to Mike Dano, the Andromeda auction, as it's been coined. And basically what happened here is Dish Network is raising about $4 billion to pay for spectrum. And the loan is, or they're raising the money through a loan, and it's actually an intercompany loan with Dish DBS Corporation. So Dish is, in a sense, loaning the network division of it money to help fund for spectrum. And this, to me, is a likely indicator that Dish actually was not the one to drop out of that Andromeda auction. And maybe it was more likely to be T-Mobile or another smaller player, and that they are still on the lookout to acquire spectrum to improve their holdings for their network. So that is what I've got.
Yeah, I'm reading the article. It looks like it says Dish has 19 megahertz of CBRS, which is great, but 18 megahertz dash 40 megahertz of
18 to 40 megahertz would be a lot better.
Gotcha. CBRS.
In addition to the CBRS. So, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. In addition to. Understood.
So basically, yeah, we're hoping that Dish is able to acquire some more mid-band to help with their capacity, their coverage, and their network speeds and performance.
Well, what I'll say is this. I'm proud of Dish. Proud of Dish for finding a way to make some money and actually put it towards an asset that's going to become incredibly valuable. I will also just say on the topic of Dish that I've seen there's been lots of people posting of Dish equipment going up.
That's only going to get more and more frequent. Like, they are building a network. At some point, you're going to see a little Dish van and some guys going up a tower in your market.
Which, what I was going to get at is good on Dish. I know I was kind of pessimistic with them, but it seems like they're making some real momentum now that we're starting to see spottings, not just in Vegas, but in other places. I hope.
Wait. I think it's like a wild animal spotting. Oh, looky here, we got a wild Dish network technology radio person installing antennas. Wow, what a rare sighting here in the cellular landscape.
But I hope that we start seeing this turn into actual materialized postpaid plans and network. Like, I'm really glad that they're roaming on AT&T, but like, we still haven't heard anything.
Yeah. When do you think they're gonna? I guess there's two phases here. Like, phase one or option one, like, they turn the plans on, they start selling service. To some degree, they're doing that with their MVNO. And then option two is like they actually light up their network. So when do you think we're going to see a proper cell phone plan from Dish, like a Dish plan? That was a long sigh.
Part of me wants to say relatively in the near future because they need to start generating revenue because Boost is bleeding customers.
Oops.
The other part of me wants to say probably not until 2023.
I think it'll be late 2022 at the earliest. And I think that because, like, if you think about it, Dennis, Boost Mobile is an MVNO. It's using agreements with T-Mobile and now with AT&T. I don't think Dish could offer anything better than Boost can with the current agreements that are in place. Like, what's the reason that people don't like Boost? They capped the unlimited plans, the true unlimited plans, to 35 gigabytes.
I don't think that's the main problem here, though, Stetson. Like, I think there's multiple facets of why Boost isn't doing well right now. One is that Boost Mobile has a poor connotation, generally speaking, amongst most consumers. You don't think of them as a premium brand. You think of them as the budget carrier. And they had a reputation for having poor network performance because for the longest time they were using the Sprint network. No, seriously, it's just the truth, right? On top of that, the existing clientele that were there are now being told that they need to replace their phones to support the T-Mobile Voice over LTE network and other things like that, which is spurring on the older clientele that might have not otherwise looked for a carrier to start looking. And then you have T-Mobile literally texting them and sandbagging them and stealing away customers. But most people also don't realize that Boost Mobile is owned by Dish now. I think that just having a fresh face, having fresh marketing behind the Dish carrier would make a big difference, and they can use that as an opportunity to do three main things. One, because they're postpaid, they can make sure to give all the customers 5G capable phones that are going to support Dish's network. Two, when they give out the customers SIM cards, they can make sure they're doing the AT&T SIM cards instead of T-Mobile. to hasten that
Start with
transition.
AT&T. You don't have to deal with this network switching nonsense.
Right. And then 3, postpaid customers, period, bring in more revenue. More revenue means that Dish can hasten the pacing of what they're trying to accomplish and have more money for these upcoming types of auctions. They don't have
Sure.
to be like I said this in a previous show, but like to win customers, it's not like you got to reinvent the wheel. Just give good customer service, give people good, like make them feel like they're getting what they're paying for, whatever that is, and have a reliable network. Well, Dish has a reliable network because literally
They're using
AT&T is
AT&T, yeah.
robust. Customer service isn't rocket science. I mean, they have,
They
they
have
acquired
Ting.
Ting,
Yeah.
and they have an incredible back end, and they have some pretty great people. Obviously, they need to bolster that, but they have some pretty incredible people. And as far as like giving good value, again, not rocket science. Look at the pricing right now across the postpaid carriers. We talk about it being a competitive market, but if we're talking about the actual numbers, like cost for plans, they're all pretty in tow with each other, right? All
Yeah.
Dish would have to do is come out with a plan at like say $65, taxes, fees all included, and make it so that it's not poo-poo like Essential, Starter, and whatever AT&T is calling their entry level.
Start Unlimited.
Start
No,
Unlimited.
AT&T Unlimited Starter. Excuse me.
All right, so here's how you do it. You ready? $65, 100 gigabytes of priority data, 1080p video streaming, 10 gigs of hotspot, $65 all in.
Yeah, I hear you. And I think the bigger problem that I'm seeing right now is I don't think Dish can do that because of their current agreement with AT&T. Like I think the cost structure wouldn't make sense for them to offer the plan you want them to offer to have their true postpaid service, which is why I think we're seeing instead the MVNO offerings.
I'm going to play devil's advocate with you here real quick.
Oh, wow. Back to that. Okay.
But Carlos is able to do it.
Okay.
And better.
Yeah. I feel like Carlos isn't a true MVNO. I feel like he has a special agreement in place. Like I wouldn't benchmark that on Dish is what I would say.
Okay, I'll rephrase it in a different way. I am sure that Dish can come up with a way to make a better plan than an AT&T starter and come around that $65 price point.
Okay. I mean, I guess, yeah. I guess I feel differently right now. I think they need traffic on their own network because I think, right,
but
I just don't think the cost structure.
That will come with time, though, right? Like having the postpaid.
Yeah, I think they won't light up or they won't offer their own postpaid service until parts of their network are live, which is why I'm saying like late 2022 at the earliest.
Yeah, I said 2023, so we're kind of in line with what we think is going to happen. But
yeah,
that being said, I mean, what phones even support the Dish network at this point? It's just the iPhone 13, right?
I mean, I think it's got to be like the S20 Galaxy S21, probably the Pixel 6, and probably the iPhone 13. I mean, that's my current understanding, at least. I could be totally mistaken on this. I'm not 100% sure what bands Dish is using. But
I'll just say something else that's worth mentioning. But like, if Dish wants to hold off on the personal plans, fine. But maybe bring to light a different brand that isn't Boost. Like,
yeah, I think I would love to see them put more marketing behind Ting, honestly. Like,
right.
I think Ting can handle the scale, the capacity. They've got good customer service. I think
like
make
Ting like the Mint Mobile of Dish,
yeah.
right? Like,
I think the other problem is that Boost Mobile has the physical stores. So like where a customer's going to, there's a lot of people still sign up in stores. They buy the new phones. So I don't know. I think they're just in a waiting game. They don't really need money. And
wait, did you say they don't really need money?
Yeah, I mean, they literally took a loan from themselves. The article touches on their network expenditure is estimated at $4 billion. And right now they have, their network expenditure is estimated at $2 billion. And they've got $2.3 billion just sitting in cash right now. So that's $300 million left over or as buffer. Like,
dude, they said they're going to spend $10 billion in total over the course of their network build out. I'm going to repeat. Dish doesn't need money.
I mean, I guess maybe they do. I feel like they have enough right now. I don't know. Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe I'm wrong.
If they want to do a nationwide deployment, they're going to need more than 10 billion. Like 10 billion will get them in urban markets where they can start getting some customers. But if they actually want to make a network on the scale of a Verizon or an AT&T, dude, it's going to take more than 10. Dude, Verizon's dropping $10 billion alone on C-band, just for deployment on C-band. Like, just C-band, nothing else. Now, granted, Dish has it a little bit easier, right? Like, a lot of the cell sites that they're using, they're not actually building. They're just renting it from Comcast and the fiber and the backhauls, all that. Like, there are things that are advantageous to Dish, but it's not cheap to rent these macros. Like, you figure a macro that's in a prime location probably is costing Dish something to the tune of, like, I'm going to guess, like, $20,000 a year. Something stupid. Like, now, multiply that by, like, however many cell sites, 30,000 they're going to need, 40,000 cell sites, macros. And then we're not even talking about small cells, which Dish is going to need to continue to add capacity and just fill in areas where macros just cannot be placed or cannot reach. And you figure those are about 10,000 a pop. And those definitely will require Dish to either run their own fiber, which not happening, or pay someone to do it, which is very expensive, because we talked about when Sneed was on why T-Mobile needs to run their fiber, which, anywho, I don't want to get negative on Dish. I am proud of Dish for putting their money where their mouth is. They're making some moves, albeit very quietly in the back room. They're doing something, which is great.
Yeah, it is great. You want to round off the show with some questions we got from Austin in the chat?
We can definitely do that, but I wanted to maybe touch on one more thing that you had brought up, because I would feel bad if we didn't talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about the new phone on T-Mobile?
Oh, yeah. This is coming from Phone Scoop, giving you the scoop on phones. It is the Nokia X100 5G phone. Want to guess the starting price, Dennis? What do you think a Nokia X100 starts at?
Well, I'm cheating because I know what it is, but if I didn't read it, I would have guessed $300, but I know it's going to be $250. So.
Yeah, $250. It's going to be exclusive on T-Mobile and Metro. So if you're on any other network, do not buy this, or any other carrier, actually, let alone network. It's running a Qualcomm Snapdragon chipset. Got some fancy marketing terms in there. 6.67-inch HD display, so pretty big. 48 megapixel main camera, 5 megapixel wide angle camera. I think that is actually supposed to be an ultra wide, because that's what that would mean. And a 16 megapixel selfie camera. So yeah, it's got T-Mobile's Sub-6 5G going on sale November 19th in midnight blue. Oh, wow. Actually, Dennis, do you notice the pricing difference? I'm just seeing this now.
$10 difference between the prepaid and the postpaid?
Yeah, that's stupid. That's an AT&T move right there.
I mean, what are your thoughts on? I'm glad there's a budget phone on 5G, but what are your thoughts?
Dude, at this point, it's better to grab like a gently used phone in that price range, like an S20 or something. I mean, you probably can't get it for $250. I think that's just like the appeal, but it's a budget phone. Like, I would rather get a premium phone on LTE at this point.
Whoa. I'm going to hard disagree with you on the LTE aspect, because it's T-Mobile we're talking about, and 5G is making a difference for them.
That's fair.
I mean, you've seen it yourself, Stetson. Look at your N41 that is actually properly deployed. It is
yeah,
pretty nice.
But dude, like a $250 Android phone, like I feel like I'd rather get like a Pixel 4 or something like that. And I just think the phone experience will be so much better. And as long as I'm getting over like 5 to 10 megabits per second, I think it's going to be fine. So
how much does a used OnePlus go for?
That's a great question.
Because the OnePluses work pretty well on T-Mobile, if memory serves me.
They do. What do we want to do? OnePlus 7? OnePlus 8?
Whichever one is 5G, so I think that's the 8.
We're doing 8. Dude, starting around $254. Let's see what the unlocked pricing is. $355. So, I mean, honestly, at that price, I think OnePlus 8 is probably worth it easily. But at $250, that's hard to say no to. Like, that's a really low-cost 5G option.
There you go. You get yourself a OnePlus 8 5G if you're going to stick with T-Mobile. There you go. But no, jokes aside, it's cool Nokia is making a phone, although fun fact, Nokia doesn't actually own their phone division. They just have the branding and they get paid a royalty. It's some other company I can't remember the name of that actually makes the phones.
It kind of looks like Motorola, but I know it's not.
I don't remember the name of the company. Yeah. I just know they pay a royalty.
Interesting. They just like slap a Nokia logo. All right, that looks pretty good. You know what it's missing? It's missing one thing. Nokia, right there. Yep, perfect. So, all right. Well, T-Mobile, I mean, I think this actually plays into T-Mobile's broader strategy of trying to be first, quote unquote, to 5G. And I think the more 5G phone options you can get, they're going to deliver those faster experiences, the better perception I think their network is going to have.
You know
So,
what they need though, right? They need a
yeah,
budget 5G option on iPhone, like an
geez,
iPhone SE2 with 5G support or something.
you're 100% correct. Austin's coming in clutch. It's HMD Global. That's
Thank
the
you,
company that is
Austin.
manufacturing the Nokia phones.
But yeah, did you want to answer Austin's question that you talked about on the one the show?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's round the show off with some questions from Austin. Austin, thank you for joining us in the live chat today. And in fact, thank you to all Patreon supporters tuning in. Looks like we got 4 of you with us. If you're interested in tuning into the podcast live, when Dennis and I record, it's available for all Patreon supporters and YouTube supporters. And you can consider joining at patreon.com/Stetson Doggett. With that said, Austin says, Dennis, I noticed earlier this week you posted some speed tests from work. Did you get a chance to see what bands you were connecting to?
Yes, not for Verizon or AT&T because it was using the iPhone, but for T-Mobile, I was connecting to NR 100 megahertz, and I was connecting to, I want to say it was band 66, 15 megahertz, and band 2.
Gee, were you aggregating all of those? Like, you must be getting some pretty good speeds.
It was 3-way carrier aggregation, so
Dang.
in fact, I think.
Well, yeah. What were you getting? I'm curious now.
I'm taking a look at my pictures because I'm pretty sure I screen capped it. Yeah, 100 megahertz confirmed on N41. I was right on that. Band 66, 15 megahertz, and then band 2, 15 megahertz. So in total, I had 130 megahertz of spectrum that I was connecting to when I ran that speed test, and I had gotten those speeds.
Holy bananas! Let's full screen you, actually, Dennis. Boom. 447 megabits per second down. Actually, I get faster speeds than that, but and the upload is slow.
Listen, for T-Mobile in my market,
that was like, good. Yes, also, T-Mobile, yes, thank you.
Also, for what it's worth saying, you got to remember I was in a very commercially focused location. That being said, my office was pretty freaking dead because a lot of people were working from home, and the only reason I had to show up is because I'm a trainee. But
yeah,
still, it was in a commercial location. There's probably a butt ton of people in that vicinity. I'm gonna guess maybe, let's say 700, 800 people. And I would say maybe a third of people have T-Mobile. So if there was 300 people connecting to that cell site and they was getting that speed,
that's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
In that context, that's pretty good.
I'm just throwing out numbers. I don't actually know if that's true. Yeah, but I'm just taking a gander.
Taking a gander. That's what we like to see.
Look, it's better than sub 25 megabits per second, which is the more common occurrence. So I'll take it. I'll take my wins for where they're at, and it's definitely better than the really poorly optimized sites that we're getting like barely 200. So I'll take it.
Absolutely. Austin is also asking, or saying that Sneed does live streams on cellular. He's actually on Los Mobile, so shout out to Los Mobile. Are you going to do that with your T-Mobile 5G gateway? I got to try it. I think that's the bottom line. I got to try it. It will be hardwired, so I'll get the gateway set up. I can probably like throw it in the back of my room and just run a cable in the middle of the room up to my computer, and we'll see how it does. We've done some tests on the Xfinity Wi-Fi. That was bad. Okay, that was bad. Not Xfinity's fault that the modem router combo is way over there. I'm not plugged in. Worst case scenario. Dennis actually streamed off of Xfinity for a while, I think. Yeah, basically a year, and no hiccups there. Actually, I had the hiccup, so there's something to show for that.
And I had 10 megabits per second upload, which was a third of what Stetson had.
Yeah, so I will definitely put it to the test. I think that's like, people are going to use this to replace their home internet. What do you do with home internet? I do live streamings. We got to test it. It's coming today. Maybe we'll do a sneak test or something for Patreon supporters early. But that's kind of it. There is one more thing I forgot to put in the show notes, Dennis, but I wanted to bring it up because I'm excited about it. And it is that we have new merch available.
Oh, the shirts?
Yeah. We got some new designs. Check this out. We got some 5G shirts. Check it out. We got 5G Echo is what I've been calling it. Kind of like 5G with a Echo. We got a 3D 5G, and we've got just your classic 5G available in t-shirts, long sleeves, sweatshirts, male and female.
Beanies?
We got a onesie if you want to throw that on.
A baby. Okay.
Yeah. 5G baby.
Bro, we gotta make a beanie, bro. We need a one best phone plans beanie so I can wear it on the show.
Dennis, I will get on that for you. But yeah, I wanted to give a shout out to the merch. So
No, that's dope. And where can they purchase said merch?
I think if you go to shop.bestphoneplans.net, does that work? It'll be linked. All right. That brings you to one shirt. I gotta add some tags to the other ones, but that'll bring you to the page.
Are the old designs still available, like the one that I'm wearing?
Yeah, you're wearing this one right here. That's
all.
on.
Oh, that's the okay. Just different.
Yeah, so you can get it royal, and this is what we wear. Actually, it's the tri blend. Excuse me.
And I will just
vintage royal.
And I will just say, for anybody that doesn't have a best, first off, I think it came down in cost as I last looked at it. But secondly, for anybody that hasn't worn this shirt, it is very comfortable. And
it's alarmingly comfortable. Like, I'm going to be ordering more shirts for sure.
Ooh, you gonna hook me up with another one of mine?
Maybe.
I'm just kidding. I'll buy one. But anywho, all right, that's it for the show. As always, I want to thank everybody that's a supporter and was able to join us live. If you're part of the #rewatch crew, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And we will see you guys this Thursday for the after show. Peace.
Peace.